Look out your window. Right now, what do you see? Grass, dirt, maybe a small creek or a slight hill. You see a yard. But a medieval miller looking at that exact same patch of land 800 years ago saw something entirely different. He saw pure, unstoppable, free power. We have been sold a massive lie about energy. We are told that generating power requires multi-billion-dollar power plants, thousands of miles of high-tension wires, and a monthly bill that somehow always goes up. It is a perfect system for them. But what if I told you the blueprint for absolute energy independence is not locked in a secret Silicon Valley lab? It is hiding in the dust of the Middle Ages. Nobody talks about this. Modern energy corporations treat the decentralized power networks of the medieval world like a forbidden secret. They want you to believe that before coal and nuclear power, humanity was just sitting in the dark, freezing in mud huts. That is complete garbage. By the year 1086, the Domesday Book recorded exactly 5,624 watermills operating across England alone. Think about that. That was one massive power station for every 50 households. And the fuel? Gravity and water. Free, constant, entirely off the grid. Imagine paying your electric bill today with the current flowing through a pipe in your garden. These medieval engineers understood something we have forgotten. They did not fight nature to extract power. They redirected it. They harvested kinetic energy from small streams, wind patterns, and even tidal shifts smashed against the coastline. They built microgrids, like a car engine. More cylinders equal more power, and with these medieval systems, a few extra feet of drop equaled exponential electricity. And the knowledge to harness that exact same physics is literally flowing through your backyard right now. My brain exploded when I found this out. The energy companies know that a modern adaptation of a medieval microhydro system could wipe out your dependency on their grid overnight. You do not need a raging river. You just need two things: a minor drop in elevation and the forbidden engineering playbook from the 12th century. But if you think the concept of a watermill is too basic to run your modern life, you are dead wrong. Because what the medieval monks figured out next was so threatening to centralized authority, it changed the course of human history forever. We are taught that medieval monks just sat in dusty rooms, copying Bibles. That is a massive lie. The Cistercian monks of the 12th century were the most ruthless, efficient energy engineers the world had ever seen. They did not just pray. They built the first decentralized industrial revolution, and they did it entirely off the central grid. Imagine a massive complex like Clairvaux Abbey in France. They did not just build next to a river. They rerouted the entire damned river. Through their buildings, the water flowed right into the abbey. First, it powered a wheel that crushed wheat into flour. Then, it passed to another wheel to mill heavy cloth. Then downstream to the tannery. Finally, it flushed the waste away. One single stream, doing the labor of 100 men, 24 hours a day, completely free. This is where it gets really interesting. The monks understood the two sacred metrics of hydropower, head and flow. Head is the vertical drop of the water. Flow is the volume. Like a car engine, more cylinders equal more power. If you have a tiny stream in your yard, but it drops 50 feet down a hill, you possess an absolute gold mine. You do not need a raging river. A flow, the size of a standard garden hose dropping through a pipe. down a steep hill can spin a modern microturbine fast enough to power your entire house. Forever. My brain exploded when I found this out. Today, you can buy a Pelton wheel microturbine for the price of a used smartphone. You hook it up to a creek, and it generates constant electricity. No solar panels relying on the sun, no windmills waiting for a breeze, just gravity and water. The exact same physics the Cistercians weaponized 800 years ago. So why is nobody doing this? Why are we hooked up to massive grids run by monopolies? Because you cannot meter gravity. You cannot put a price tag on a creek flowing through private property. When the Industrial Revolution hit, the power brokers did not switch to coal because it was cheaper. Water power was actually more efficient. They switched to coal for one very sinister reason. Coal could be hoarded, coal could be controlled, and importantly, coal could be transported to cities where workers could be trapped in factories. Decentralized power was the enemy of the state. But there was one rogue engineer who saw what was happening. He realized the grid was a trap, and he designed a device so threatening to the energy monopolies, all that they had to destroy his reputation entirely. Imagine a machine that generates massive amounts of energy without a single moving part. No gears, no pistons, no wires to short circuit, no electronics to fry. This is not a concept from a science fiction novel. It is an ancient medieval technology called the trump, and it is the single most dangerous invention to the modern energy monopoly, because it is virtually impossible to break. The concept was perfected in the Pyrenees Mountains during the late Middle Ages. It is simple engineering that defies modern belief. You take a vertical pipe, you feed water into the top. But here is the secret. You allow tiny holes near the intake to suck in air. As the water falls down the pipe, the air bubbles are trapped and compressed by the weight of the water above them. At the bottom, you have a sealed chamber. The water flows out, but the compressed air is trapped. This pressurized air is pure, stored energy. It can run tools, power engines, or spin turbines to generate electricity. Wait, that is not all. My brain exploded when I realized the scale of this efficiency. In 1910, an engineer named Charles Taylor applied this medieval logic to a site called Ragged Chutes in Ontario. He built a massive underground trompe. It produced 5,000 horsepower of compressed air energy. It ran for over 40 years without a single mechanical breakdown. Imagine that. 40 years of constant power, with zero maintenance costs, no repair teams, no replacement parts, no monthly subscription to a grid provider. This is why you have never heard of it. The modern grid is built on the concept of maintenance. They want parts that break. They want systems that require constant oversight. A medieval trompe built with modern PVC piping in your backyard hillside could provide enough compressed air to power a home generator indefinitely. You would be harvesting the very atmosphere using nothing but gravity. It is the ultimate off-grid cheat code. Like a battery that never degrades, the air under pressure stays ready until you need it. But if this technology was so effective, why did it vanish from our textbooks? Why did the blueprints for these large-scale medieval systems suddenly become classified or lost in the early 20th century? The answer lies in a small overlooked detail found in the records of the Knights Templar. They weren't just protecting pilgrims. They were protecting a way to turn the very soil beneath your feet into a high-capacity battery. And what they discovered about the thermal properties of mud is about to change everything you think you know about heating your home. The Knights Templar were not just warriors. They were the first true masters of sustainable infrastructure. While the rest of the world was fighting over surface territory, the Templars were looking down. They discovered that the Earth itself is the most efficient capacitor ever created. Imagine your backyard, not as a patch of grass, but as a giant, living battery that never loses its charge. This is not theoretical physics. It is a forgotten biological reality that the modern energy grid is desperate to keep buried under layers of regulations. This is where it gets really interesting. The secret lies in a concept rediscovered in the 1970s by a French innovator named Jean Pain, who spent years studying ancient medieval land management techniques. He realized that when you stack specific types of organic matter, the exact kind found in any medieval village, you trigger a biological fusion reactor. He built a mound of wood chips 50 tons in weight. Inside this mound, he ran simple plastic piping filled with water. The results were staggering. For 18 consecutive months, this single pile of yard waste produced hot water. At a temperature of 140 degrees Fahrenheit, at a rate of 60 liters per minute, it powered his entire farm. It provided heat through the dead of winter. And wait, that is not all. He tapped into the gases produced by this decay and compressed them to run his car and his electric generators. He was literally driving his vehicle on the energy extracted from the floor of a forest. Think about your monthly gas or electricity bill for heating. Now imagine if that bill was zero because you had a small managed mound of mulch in the corner of your property. The grid hides. This because this form of energy is impossible to centralize. You cannot pipe biological decay from a massive power plant into millions of homes without losing all the heat. It only works if it is decentralized. It only works if you own the source. My brain exploded when I found out that medieval castles used a variation of this logic. They utilized massive thermal mass combined with subterranean ventilation to create constant ambient temperatures without a single lump of coal. They weren't just building walls, they were building heat sinks that could store energy for months. But why stop at heat? If the Earth is a battery, then the sky is a massive power cable. The medieval engineers noticed something strange happening at the very tips of their great cathedral spires during storms. A blue glow known to sailors as St. Elmo's fire. They realized the air itself was saturated with electricity, and they devised a way to pull that power down from the heavens using nothing but stone and iron, leading to a discovery so dangerous it was declared sorcery by the very church that commissioned it. The spires of Europe were not just symbols of faith. They were massive, functional antennas. If you have ever stood near a high-tension power line on a damp day, you have heard that low, persistent hum. That is the sound of pure energy trying to find the ground. In the year 1200, the residents of Chartres, or Reims, felt that exact same vibration radiating from the great cathedrals. This was not a miracle, it was atmospheric physics. The Earth we walk on is a giant negative terminal. The ionosphere, miles above our heads, is positive. In between, there is a constant electric field of roughly 100 volts per meter. Think about that. For every yard you move upward, the voltage increases. The medieval masons were not just laying stone, they were tuning the landscape. By building spires hundreds of feet into the sky, They were creating a direct path for this atmospheric potential to flow down to Earth. This is where it gets really interesting. The iron tie rods inside Gothic structures were not just there to hold the walls together. Modern engineers have discovered that these metal chains formed a continuous conductive path from the highest point of the church deep into the foundations. They were creating a giant capacitor. Imagine your entire local church acting as a massive power station, silently drawing energy from the clouds and storing it in the very stone of the sanctuary. My brain exploded when I discovered the accounts of ever-burning lamps. Throughout the Middle Ages, there are documented cases of ancient tombs and secret cathedral vaults being opened to reveal lamps that had been glowing for hundreds of years without a drop of oil or a single wick. Mainstream science calls this a myth. But if you understand how to harvest the etheric energy of the atmosphere, a perpetual glow is not only possible, it is simple. Wait, that is not all. The knowledge of this free fire from the sky was the ultimate threat to the emerging financial systems of the Renaissance. If energy is as free as the rain, you cannot control the people. You cannot force them into factories if they can power their own homes for free. The grid, as we know it today, is not a technological necessity. It is a system of economic chains. They replaced the silent spires with smokestack factories to ensure that every joule of energy had a price tag attached to it. They want you to think this is ancient magic, but it is modern engineering hiding in plain sight. But what if I told you that you do not need a cathedral to do this? There was a much smaller, much more common device used in every medieval kitchen that was actually a highly efficient thermal engine. And when you realize what this pot was really doing, you will understand why the big energy corporations are terrified of you looking into your own pantry. The humble cooking pot. It sits in your kitchen, silent and unassuming. But to a medieval householder, this was not just a vessel for stew. It was a precise thermal regulator. Have you ever wondered why ancient pottery from the Middle Ages often contains specific metallic traces, like galena or antimony? Mainstream archaeologists call it impurity, but investigative engineers are starting to suspect something much more profound. They were building primitive thermoelectric generators hundreds of years before we invented the battery. This is where it gets really interesting. The principle of the thermoelectric effect is simple. If you have a temperature difference between two different conductors, you create an electrical current. The medieval hearth was the perfect environment for this. By embedding specific minerals into the clay of a cooking pot and placing it near a constant fire, you could generate a low-level, persistent flow of electricity. Imagine your ancestors using this free current to power simple devices, or even to electrolyze water in small quantities. My brain exploded when I found out that the Leyden jar concepts might have been active in rural villages long before the Enlightenment. They weren't just cooking dinner, they were charging the future. Wait, that is not all. Think about the modern kitchen. You have a microwave that consumes 1,200 watts in a burst of violent radiation. You have an electric range that drains the grid every time you boil an egg. It is a system designed for instant gratification and maximum energy waste. The medieval equivalent was the hay box, or the slow thermal resonator. Once you brought a pot to a boil, using minimal fuel, you placed it in an insulated chamber of straw and wool. It would continue to cook for 10 hours. using nothing but its own trapped thermal momentum. This is the definition of efficiency. You are not paying for energy, you are reusing it.